So let's go over my basic toolkit. I've carried this toolkit and basically in this form for pretty much every trip I've done. The only things that may change, I may carry some extra sealant depending on how remote I am, maybe an extra tire boot, potentially some extra tenacious tape. So we'll go ahead and dive in here real quick. First of all, I carry a Leatherman. This tool comes in really handy. Set of pliers here. It does have a flat blade screwdriver, a Phillips screwdriver. It does have various other little tools in here that do come in handy at times. It also has a pair of small scissors, which do come in really handy as well. And then, of course, a knife. So even if I didn't carry the Leatherman, I would still carry a knife with me. But if I'm going to carry a knife, I might as well carry something else that, has a bunch of tools on it. And then, of course, for me, a wine opener and then a bottle opener. Kind of nice to have on there. The other thing is my multi-tool for the bike itself. The thing that I focus on is making sure that each of the tools that I have here matches up with something on the bike. Or more importantly, that everything on the bike matches what you have on the tool. So for instance, I can get my pedals off with this tool. I have a chain brake here, which is useful for me. It also has some tire levers on the sides, which of course is nice to have. So the main thing I would say when looking for a multi-tool, make sure you know how to use what's on that tool. There's really no point in having a tool that does all these amazing things if you don't know how to use them. So that's my multi-tool. All right. So sometimes I will carry a CO2 canister and the nozzle adapter. Sometimes I won't. The thing is, if I need to reseat my tires because I run tubeless, this will help me do that. The regular frame pump might or might not make that possible. So kind of depending on how I'm feeling about my tires and where I'm going, I'll carry this with me. This is a derailleur hanger. This one's specific for my Salsa cutthroat. The tape I have on here is holding the screws in place so that I don't lose them. For this particular model, the screws are necessary for it. So the reason you want to carry a derailleur hanger with you is if you drop the bike, if it leans over. I've had a bike fall over in the wind when I thought I had it secured nicely. It bent the derailleur hanger and suddenly the bike doesn't shift very well, which means riding for miles and miles every day is not as much fun. So if the derailleur hanger breaks, then you're really out of luck there. So just carrying a simple derailleur hanger with you makes a lot of sense. Carry one, obviously, that's specific for your bike. Alrighty, and then here, because again I run tubeless, I carry an extra set of valves, tubeless valves. So if, let's say this, for whatever reason, this rubber on my valves is dry rotted, maybe I haven't replaced them, I've just forgotten about it, that can cause things to leak. And then also, even if I didn't carry the full valve, I would carry just this inner valve core here, because sometimes when you go to add air to the tires, especially with a small frame pump, the end of this valve core can get bent. Right here, it can get bent, and then when you go to tighten it back down, it may not seal up and you may actually start leaking air. So even if I don't carry two of these, I will always carry some of these with me. The other part of that is, if you need to add sealant, you have to be able to remove the valve core. Of course, this is if it's on the bike. And then you will put the sealant in here, and it will add sealant to the wheel. In order to do that, you need a valve core removal tool. There are some varying versions of this. I really like this one. It's cheap, it's easy. Downside is it can be easy to lose. it just slides on. You'll notice how there's the flat sides here versus the rounded sides. If you look at a removable valve core, it has to be a removable valve core, that will line up perfectly on there. And then you'll just screw it back in or remove it, whatever the case may be. So there we go. Alrighty. So, you know, maybe if I'm really looking to cut weight, I wouldn't carry this tool, because this wolf's tooth chain tool has it built in. You can see that. So you can do this with it as well. Again, if you don't know how to fix certain things on your bike, carrying the tools to do that doesn't make much sense. So if you're not comfortable with how to repair a chain or how to insert a master link, so this tool does carry 2 sets of master links in there, and it is also a tire lever as well if needed, then maybe you wouldn't want to carry this tool. So if I need to replace links, I do carry a set of links with me, and then of course I have my master links here. And this tool helps me to be able to remove the master link if needed. So that's a nice thing to have. And I carry just a few extra links just in case I break a chain. Then this will help me get the chain put back on the bike with the master links, and I can at least get back into town or civilization and catch a ride if needed to a shop. All right, this little baby right here is invaluable to have. If you run a certain tire valve that you can't fill it up at a gas station because it's not like what's on your car, this is what you need to be able to adapt to that valve. If you need to reseat your tire, if you need to suddenly add a bunch of air and you happen to be in town and can drop a few quarters in an air machine, this will allow you to use that pump. They're cheap, maybe 59 cents if that, and they weigh next to nothing. All right, so the toothbrush that I use when bike packing, it has a removable head, as you can see kind of here. I keep the spare heads because they are really valuable when trying to clean the bike in the middle of nowhere or at an RV park or a state park. Again, as we've talked about already, a clean bike is not only a fast bike, but it is a reliable bike. I am pretty meticulous about keeping my drivetrain at least fairly clean on my rides. As a result, I'd like to think that that's part of the reason I haven't had many mechanical issues. Now, I'm not, a stickler on it, but every 3-4 days I will break out this toothbrush and try to knock off as much grit and grime as I can before reapplying lube. So that's something else I carry with me. All right, here is a set of tweezers. And I keep them in here because that way they don't poke a bunch of stuff. Tweezers are good for first aid purposes, pulling thorns out of tires, just really anything you can imagine. So that's nice to have. And then I carry a small tube of E6000. I've actually had to glue on some shoe soles before with this. I've had to patch maybe a small hole in a sleeping pad, various reasons to have just a small thing of glue. I like this over super glue because super glue does tend to dry out in the packaging, and it's difficult to work with, gets all over your fingers and everything. This is a lot easier for me to work with out on the field. Alrighty, and then this is a roll of Gorilla Tape, 1-inch Gorilla Tape. This is the same size that you might use to turn your wheels into tubeless compatible wheels, for instance. So I just rolled it around itself. It's just nice to have. Some people will, refer to it as duct tape, but Gorilla Tape is actually a little bit stronger, a little bit better in my opinion. And this 1-inch width here is just kind of nice to have in general. Some people will wrap this around their frame pump. I'm kind of indifferent. Just whatever you do, make sure it's still usable. Okay, and then because I do run tubeless, I carry 2 ounces of extra sealant with me. If I'm running plus bike, or if I'm really, really remote and I want to make sure that I'm not going to find myself stranded, I may carry 2 bottles of this. That's not real common for me. If you are running tubes, then you obviously won't need this, and you may replace some of the items that I've shown here with just a spare tube. If you're riding in any area that has thorns, I will warn you, tubeless is the only way to go. And to be honest, tubeless in general is becoming the way to go. It just makes a whole lot more sense and it's a lot easier. I do carry a tire boot. Sometimes I think it's more of a placebo, because since I am running tubeless, if I need to put this on the inside of a tire to seal up a sidewall cut, this may or may not stick. I may have to really clean the inside of the tire and put this back on there. So that's something that you may, your mileage may vary for that. All right, so this is a plug kit. If you can see there that there's a little gap here. So what happens is, I've already used one, you pull this piece out of here and you insert it into the end of this tool. And then if you have a hole in your tire, you try to stick this down in that hole, and this will fold over. And then once it's done in that hole, you can pull it out and it will leave this plugged in that hole. Don't pull on it. It will stay in there. So I have used this in the desert and it has actually worked very well for me. Again, if you're running tubeless, this is a must-have. All right, and this setup right here should be in your toolkit whether you are running tubeless or with tubes. This is a curved needle. If you're looking to buy them, they usually come in like packs of 5 or so in different radius. So they're used many times for leather, and you want to get a stronger needle. You don't want something that's just designed to go through cloth. The leather needle here being stronger means you can, if you have to patch a sidewall on a tire, you can actually push this through the sidewall on a tire. And then I just use floss. Some people may use a nylon string, but this is a really handy package. This is the size that's free, that comes from the dentist. Go to the dentist, kids. And I can just use this, and it's strong enough to seal up the sidewall. Additionally, if I had to use the boot, say the cut was through here on the sidewall, if I patched the sidewall, I could then, if I wanted, sew up around it. That would be pretty extreme. May not ever actually have to do that, but it's nice to know that I possibly could. Alrighty. I also carry just a set of safety pins. So say you have a strap break or something along those lines. These safety pins may not be strong enough to hold them, but they may. I've also had instances where I've been wearing knee warmers, and we all know the trouble with keeping knee warmers pulled up high enough, especially after a few days of riding. Maybe you haven't been able to wash them. They're kind of stretched out. Pin them to your shorts and they stay up. I also had an instance when I was down in Big Bend where the trails were so overgrown and the thorns were so thick that I needed the coverage on the bottom of my legs. So I had to pull my knee warmers down to cover the bottom of my legs. But in order to hold them in place, I had to use the safety pins to pin them to my shorts. Lightweight, you may not even need that many. So good thing to have. All right, so this is tenacious tape. It comes in a bigger piece, but generally you're not going to need a huge piece with you, especially if you have Gorilla Tape. This is more like a cloth tape, so if you have a leak on your sleeping pad, maybe a tear on your puffy jacket, or a small tear on your bags or something, this stuff works really well for that. Kind of optional. Your call if you want to carry both of these things. Getting close to the end here. All right, so this is glue dots. See if I can show it here. It's a little wad of glue, kind of sticky material in there. So if you, you could potentially use this to plug a hole on the inside of a tire maybe. Not real sure how it would handle with the sealant, if it would bond at all, but it's always nice to have. If you get a leak on your sleeping pad or something, you could just stick this on there and then, maybe put the tenacious tape over it if it's a, a big enough hole for, let's say. So just kind of I don't know, it came in a package of stuff that I had and I've thought it was really handy, so I've kept it in my toolkit. All right, so then we also have just a few long zip ties. You never know when these might come in handy. So if you're going to be buying zip ties specifically, and you probably can't see this, these zip ties have a metal ratcheting system in them. They're much stronger than, say, this type, which is just a little plastic system, ratcheting system in there. All right, and then lastly, I carry my toolkit in this container on the down tube of my bike and a water bottle holder. So we can go ahead and maybe start packing. I like to keep the valve core remover in there because it's easy to get to. All right. So let's go ahead and put the sealant in here. We'll put the wolf's tooth chain tool in there, my tweezers, air canister, perhaps my derailleur hanger. And I just like to put some of these flat items in a little bag. I just buy these at Joann's or Michael's or something like that. They're like jewelry bags, but this isn't watertight. And if I happen to go through some deep water, I just like having a little bit more peace of mind that it's maybe a little protected. All right. Plus, keeping the chain out of the water maybe helps it not rust. My adapter. Once this is used, you may want to put it in a second bag. Additionally, if you want, you can carry just maybe a little tear off of an old t-shirt to put in here as well, so that you can hold it on the chain when you spin the crank and help knock some stuff off. All right, and I'll put that tape in there just so that it stays dry. All right, then we have the nozzle down here. Let's go ahead and put that nozzle in there first. And then we'll put the packet in there. And then my valve cores, just kind of slide them down in there. Take care when you put them in there to not be next to metal items that may nick this part here or may tear here. You may actually consider putting these in a little baggie as well. All right. And that's my toolkit.